Good Wednesday morning, everybody. Beautiful Wednesday morning here in Central Florida. Starting the day off at 57 degrees. No, that's not right. 67 degrees. A little bit of difference there. And we're going to have a great day. Absolutely going to have a great day. No reason not to. Um, and I'll tell you, I struggle with an issue lately of not repaying evil with evil. And that's a struggle I have right now. And normally I don't do too bad with that, but this individual lives on my property. Not in my home, thank God, but on my property in the apartment out back. And it's not so much the evil against me because I really don't care. You know, whatever. If that's what makes you feel like a man, more power to you. But the evil that he distributes upon others in the family, both on our property and not. And yeah, they will never say it to the face of the person, but behind that person's back, they're just terrible. And I don't play the games. I don't listen to it. I move on. I used to address it, but it doesn't matter how kind I am. This person will go around telling everybody how terrible, horrible, rotten I am, which is fine. It doesn't matter to me. People know who I am and how I am, and say what you want. Um, I've sat in the office with HR and said, and I quote, if someone wants to make up a lie saying that I said something, at least use the vernacular I use. If you come up with a phrase that sounds really bad and I've never used it, and I'm not known for using it, do better. Because listen, I make mistakes every day. Every single day I make mistakes. I don't try to, and I try to correct them as soon as I realize it. So you can come up with something better than the false accusation, I would think. You can find something. But don't let that bother me either, because it's not worth the time. And just letting that out. Woohoo! So I was working on a project, and on this project I was framing a floor. All right. And it was not for a house, it was for a shed, but I still used some pretty familiar measurements and stuff that I'm used to dealing with and have for a very long time. And as I'm framing this floor, a comment is made by a bystander that, oh, are you sure that's right? And I looked at them and I looked at what they were pointing at, and I said, what makes you think it's not right? Well, that's not how I've seen it done on this old house, or I don't think that's how Norm Abram would do it. Do you know Norm Abram? Probably not. Um, if you got your knowledge from sitting in a chair watching a show, just move on. You've got nothing beneficial to say here, because I have framed a many floor and wall. Many. Over many years. And even if I'm using the nail gun or whether I'm using the hammer and nails, I know how many nails to put in the ends. I know what kind of hangers to use if I'm building, if it needs to have hangers, for hurricane strength and stuff. Um, and on the shed floor, I was not using hangers, and that was his problem. It was a 4x6 shed, not a dwelling or home. But it's all in what you really know. And something I'll tell you, I was teaching a young man how to put on fascia on the end of the roof, right? And we were using a PVC material because I'm sick of replacing the wood, even pressure treated, after so many years. I think this is the third or fourth time I replaced it, and I said I'm not going to do it again. So we went to a PVC material, and I made sure I got one that looks like wood, because I'm in the historic district, and if it doesn't look like wood, it's going to be a problem. So anyhow, I showed him the impact driver and how to use it, and I showed him the difference between pre-drilling a hole and not pre-drilling a hole, and I showed him how to hold it by himself by using a C-clamp and a board to hold the other end for you. And the first 3 or 4 screws hit the ground instead of went in the material. And he comes down off the ladder and picks up the screws, and he looks at me and he says, "What am I doing wrong?" So I told him, I said, make sure that you're holding level and straight the fastener with the fastening device. If you're at an angle, and if you're not putting enough pressure, it's going to do what happened. He goes up there, a couple more fall down. He got one in, a couple more fell down. And he said, oh, when he got the next one in, he says, I got it now. And boom, 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 he's going at it. And he comes down and he says, man, the people on them videos really make it look simple. Well, of course, you think they're showing you the hard parts, or if they have years and years and years of experience, they don't have that problem. Well, when you're first learning, there's minor things you've got to look through, you know? Simple little things. I did a small job, and the guy beside me had all these fancy little gadgets, and I took my piece of wood and walked over to the area and put some marks on it, cut it, put it in place. Went to the next one, kept going, mitered my corners. I'm doing trim work around the staircase. Going up the stairs, and put my marks. I used another piece of wood to help mark out. I didn't take a single measurement. And he's like, how'd you get that done so fast? We had stairs on both sides. I was doing the right side, he was doing the left side. And mine was done probably 30 minutes before his. And he said, how'd you do that? I said, what do you mean? He says, I didn't see you pull out a tape measure once. I'm like, I didn't need it. So I showed him some tricks and a few things. I guess you could call them tricks. To me, it's just a way of doing things. And he had these fancy little angle finders and stuff, and those have their place. They have their place. There are times when you need that stuff, angle finder and other little things. And you know, I have a couple framing squares, and one of them has little knobs on it because they're locked in on one of the most common stair measurements I've used on decks, you know. But they can be moved to be whatever you need them to be, right? And when I did my stringers, I used that, but I adjusted it to what the specifications were for those particular stringers, and of course keeping them within code, the rise and the and the depth. And I didn't learn that from watching This Old House. I learned that from working with a very mean old man from the time I was, I think, 16, maybe younger. A very mean man that was very, very rough to work with and very hard to work with, but taught me more than I could ever repay him. I didn't get paid much, and I got treated like a third-class piece of trash. Never a kind word ever, nothing could ever be good enough. But the education he gave me and the knowledge he passed on to me was more love than some of the kind people I've worked for. True story. And that goes on to what I say. People misconceive what love is. I can't tell you how many people that were kind to my face acted like they were a loving family member, and when it all came down to it, they didn't love me enough to show me anything or tell me where I was wrong. That's not love. That's hate. If you don't care for somebody enough to help them improve, that's not love. You don't have to be kind to be loving. It helps, it's nice, but you don't have to be. You know, that old man was a World War II and Korean War veteran. He'd seen it. He'd been in the mix. He was a rough old guy to work for, and tough as nails, and a please and thank you never came out of his mouth his whole life, I don't think. Not when it came to people he was working with. You don't need a please or thank you. Get the dang job done. This is what I told you to do. Do it. Here, I'll show you, dummy. Pay attention. Took time to show me. I still have that knowledge today, and I pass it on to my kids best I can. So, I think sometimes we misconceive what love and care is. You know? I've seen it 100 times, and it drives me nuts. That child you spoil and treat like they can do no wrong will be the child that disrespects you and disappoints you and just really breaks your heart 99% of the time. And that child you were hard on and wouldn't let squirm will be the one that makes you proud. And there's such thing as being overbearing, but I'm just saying. And I wish I learned a lot of this stuff 40 years ago. But I was a little slow. My learning curve was like this. I like to think it's like this now. But I struggle with some things, just like everybody else. So be honest with your struggles and work on them. I guess I babbled enough this morning, so y'all have an awesome day. It's hump day, y'all. You made it halfway there. You're on the downhill slide from this point on. You're doing great. So do your best to be your very best, and when you fail, because we all do, pick yourself up, dust yourself on, and rise up and move forward and learn from it. You know, a famous sheriff once said, "Don't judge a man by how he falls. Judge him by how he picks himself back up." And I tell you, a lot of us could learn from that. Yeah, my eyes are messing with me still. This stuff will get fixed someday. Lord willing. Anywho, y'all have a good one. We catch you later.